You know that friend who shows up 15 minutes before everyone else, sitting in their car waiting because they're too early to knock on the door? Or maybe that's you, checking your watch obsessively, calculating traffic patterns like you're planning a military operation just to grab coffee with someone, while the rest of the world is fashionably late or scrambling through the door at the exact minute something starts. There's this whole tribe of people who live by a completely different clock. And here's what's fascinating. Being early isn't just about punctuality or good manners. It's a window into how your brain processes time, control, anxiety, and your place in the world. So let's unfold what's really happening in the minds of people who always arrive early. Because trust me, it's way more complex than just setting an alarm. First, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Society loves to paint early arrivers as responsible, organised, respectful. And sure, those things can be true. But there's also this darker, quieter narrative that nobody wants to admit. For many chronic early arrivers, showing up ahead of schedule isn't a choice. It's a compulsion. It's driven by an undercurrent of anxiety that whispers, what if you're late? What if traffic is worse than you thought? What if they think you don't care? Your brain starts running simulations of disaster scenarios, and suddenly leaving 30 minutes early for a 10-minute drive feels like the only rational option. Psychologists call this anticipatory anxiety, and it's rooted in your brain's desperate attempt to control the uncontrollable. Time is slippery. Traffic is unpredictable. Other people's perceptions of you are outside your grasp. But if you leave early enough, if you pad every margin with buffer time, you create this illusion of control. You're not at the mercy of chance anymore. You've outsmarted chaos. But here's where it gets really interesting. Being early isn't just about avoiding the bad outcome of being late. It's about avoiding the feeling of being late. And those are two very different things. Think about it. When you're running behind, even by just a few minutes, your body enters a stress response. Your heart rate increases. Cortisol floods your system. Your thoughts start spiraling. You feel this visceral discomfort, this guilt, this sense that you're failing at something fundamental. For people who always arrive early, that feeling is so intolerable that they've essentially built their entire relationship with time around never experiencing it. It's a protective mechanism. You've learned, probably through years of experience or maybe from childhood messages about punctuality and respect, that being late equals being bad. And your brain has committed to never letting you feel that way again. Now let's dig into the personality side of this, because early arrivers tend to share some fascinating traits. Research in personality psychology shows that people who are chronically punctual or early often score high in conscientiousness, which is one of the big 5 personality dimensions. Conscientious people are organised, detail-oriented, and deeply committed to meeting obligations. But there's more to it than that. Many early arrivers also carry what psychologists call high sensitivity to social evaluation. You care deeply about what others think of you, not in a shallow validation-seeking way necessarily, but in a way that makes you hyper-aware of how your actions might be perceived or judged. Being late feels like a statement about your character, your priorities, your respect for others, and you can't bear the thought of someone thinking poorly of you because you couldn't manage something as basic as showing up on time. Here's a metaphor that might resonate. Imagine time as a tightrope stretched between 2 buildings. Most people walk across it with a kind of casual confidence, maybe wobbling a bit, sometimes running behind, sometimes getting there right on time. But for chronic early arrivers, that tightrope feels terrifyingly narrow. One misstep, one delay, and you're falling. So you don't just walk across it. You arrive at the building early, you check the rope, you plan your route, and you cross it with extreme caution, always building in extra time in case the wind picks up. It's exhausting, but it feels necessary, because in your mind, the alternative is failure. There's also something deeply relational happening here. People who always arrive early often grew up in environments where punctuality was non-negotiable. Maybe you had a parent who was obsessively on time, or maybe you experienced consequences for being late that felt disproportionately harsh. Maybe you watched a caregiver stress about time constantly, and you absorbed that anxiety like a sponge. Over time, your brain wired itself to associate earliness with safety and lateness with danger. It became part of your identity. You became the reliable one, the one people could count on, and that role gave you value, gave you a sense of worth. So now, even decades later, you can't shake it. Being early isn't just a habit, it's who you are. But let's flip the script for a second, because there's a beautiful side to this too. People who always arrive early are often deeply empathetic. You understand that other people have schedules, commitments, lives that don't revolve around you. You respect their time because you respect them. You show up early because you don't want to inconvenience anyone, because you value the relationship more than your own comfort. And in a world where so many people treat time casually, where being late has become almost normalized, your commitment to showing up is actually a quiet act of care. You're saying, without words, that this matters to me, that you matter to me. There's also an element of self-respect in chronic earliness that doesn't get talked about enough. When you arrive early, you give yourself space to breathe. You're not rushing, you're not frazzled. You get to observe the room, settle into your body, prepare mentally for whatever's coming. In a strange way, arriving early is a form of self-care for people who struggle with anxiety or overstimulation. It's your buffer zone, your moment of calm before the storm, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with needing that. Of course, like anything, this behavior can tip into dysfunction. If your need to be early is so extreme that it controls your life, if you're arriving 45 minutes ahead for everything, and sitting in parking lots feeling anxious the whole time, that's worth examining. If you're missing out on spontaneity, on flexibility, on the beauty of just letting things unfold because you're too locked into your rigid time calculations, that's a cost. Some early arrivers carry such intense time anxiety that they can't relax even when they're ahead of schedule. They've won the battle, but lost the peace. And that's where therapy, mindfulness, or simply questioning the belief that being late is catastrophic can make a real difference. But here's the truth I want you to sit with. If you're someone who always arrives early, you're not broken, you're not neurotic, even if your brain sometimes feels that way. You're someone whose nervous system learned to survive by controlling time. You're someone who values respect, preparation, and care. And yes, maybe there's anxiety underneath it. Maybe there's a fear of judgment, or a childhood wound that hasn't fully healed. But there's also strength in your reliability, beauty in your consideration, and wisdom in your understanding that time, once lost, can't be reclaimed. So the next time you're sitting in your car 15 minutes early, watching the clock tick down, feeling that familiar mix of relief and restlessness, take a breath. Acknowledge what your brain is trying to do for you. It's trying to keep you safe. It's trying to protect you from a feeling you've learned to avoid. And maybe, just maybe, you can thank it for that, while also gently reminding yourself that even if you were 5 minutes late, you'd still be okay. You'd still be worthy. You'd still be enough. If this resonated with you, drop a comment about your relationship with time. Are you the early arriver, or are you the one who shows up right on time? And if you want to keep unfolding the psychology behind everyday behaviors, hit that subscribe button, because understanding yourself isn't just interesting, it's the beginning of real freedom.